Are you ready to buy your first home, but you're not exactly sure where to start? Well, stay tuned, because in this video, we're going to go over the 15 most important tips to help you in your first-time home buying experience. Hey, it's Greg with Greg Sells Homes. Today, we're going to go over the 15 most important tips when buying your first home. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Tip number 1 is start saving early. Save for your down payment and save for your closing costs. Depending on the type of loan you get, your down payment can be anywhere from 3.5% to 20%. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but even 3.5% on a $200,000 home, that's still $7,000. Now, depending on what your down payment is, you may also have to pay PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So your best bet is to get online, get a mortgage calculator, and you can play with different down payments, different house types, different house prices, and you can kind of see what you can afford and what you can't afford. Tip number 2, explore your mortgage options. Now, talk to your mortgage lender. There's different types of mortgages. You can get a VA loan, you can get an FHA loan, you can also get a conventional loan. Now, each loan has a different down payment requirement. Some are going to require 10%, some 3.5%, some more. You may also apply for state or government down payment assistance, or you may be able to qualify for any kind of first-time home buyer programs. Tip number 3 is determine how much you can afford. Nobody's going to know your financial situation better than yourself. So get online and play with an affordability calculator before you ever meet with your lender, so you have an idea of how much you're going to be able to afford. Tip number 4 is credit. Credit plays a huge role when it comes to applying for a mortgage. The number one thing you should do is get online. You can get a free annual credit report once a year. Any errors you see on your credit report, make sure you dispute those. Also, any open loans you have, credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, try and pay those off. If not, try and pay them down as much as you can. About 6 months prior to you getting your mortgage, make sure you don't open up any new loans. No auto loans, no personal loans, no credit cards. Tip number 5 is compare mortgage rates, compare mortgage lenders. Just like you were buying a car, you wouldn't go to one dealership and buy the first car you see. Make sure you typically get 3 different lenders. They may compete against each other and get you a lower interest rate. Tip 6 is get your pre-approval letter. Now, I just did a video that was posted about the differences between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. A pre-approval letter is a necessity when you start looking for houses and making offers. So before you start looking, get your pre-approval letter from your lender. Tip number 6 is hire the right realtor. That's a huge one. Your realtor is going to be your go-to person. You want someone that's going to answer the phone when you call, answer your emails, answer your text messages. You also want somebody that's knowledgeable not only about the offer writing process, but about the neighborhood. Tip number 8 is pick the right house in the right neighborhood. Even if you don't have kids or you plan on having kids in the future, schools could play a huge factor in your home value later down the road. So make sure you research the schools. Also, you can stop by the local police department and get a crime statistics, and you can kind of see what the crime is like in the area you're trying to buy. Also, make sure you drive the neighborhood in the morning, the afternoon, and at night. You can kind of see the traffic, the activity levels, the noise levels, so you can be prepared before you write the offer. Another thing you should do is write down your must-haves, your wants, and your absolute negatives. Now, be realistic about it. You're not going to find a 5-bedroom, 4-bath home with 20,000 square feet for $25,000. Now, this is something that you can ask your realtor. They'll be able to help you and be realistic. Tip number 9 is stick to your budget. Now, you might have a ceiling of, let's say, $130,000, but that doesn't mean you want to go looking at houses at $135,000 or even $130,000. You actually want to look at houses a little bit lower. The reason for that is, let's say you move in and 2 months later your fridge goes out, or a major appliance, or air conditioning. That kind of gives you a little wiggle room with a little extra money to fix those. Now, also, in a very competitive market, if you found a house, I'm sure somebody else has found it as well. And if they're going to write an offer, you might have a multiple offer situation. Now, at that point, if you were looking at your max budget house, you wouldn't be able to go above that offer. Whereas if you're looking at a house a little bit lower, you'd be able to offer a little higher and have a better chance of getting that house. Tip number 10 is make the most of any open house or any showings you go to. Make sure you notice any stains, any smells, any minor repairs, any major damage you see, because that's going to be your bargaining power when it comes to writing an offer on that house. Now, if you need to go back later at a different time, your realtor will be able to get you in for a private showing. That way you can kind of dig deeper and look a little closer at all those repairs that you wrote down earlier. Tip number 11 is not budgeting for your closing costs. Now, closing costs can range anywhere from 2% up to about 5% of the purchase value. Now, that's going to be something to talk to your lender about. They'll be able to give you a better idea of what your closing costs will be. Another thing is you can also write into the offer to have the seller pay for a portion or all of the closing costs if need be. Now, that's going to reduce how strong of an offer you come in at. So talk to your realtor and they'll be able to discuss what's a good and what's a bad idea. Tip number 12 is not saving enough for after move-in expenses. So once you move in, you might have to do paint, minor repairs, or even major repairs that you might have known about. If you didn't start budgeting for those prior, you won't have enough to pay for all those. Another thing is moving expenses. Are you going to rent a company, or are you going to pay for beer and pizza with your friends to come help you move? Make sure you budget those in, so that way when it comes time to move, you can afford it. Tip number 13 is buying a home for today and not tomorrow. Make sure you are looking for your future. Maybe in 3 or 4 years you want to start having kids, you want to get married, you want to have 8 dogs. Make sure you're prepared for that and you're not buying a home that fits you today where in 2 years you're going to outgrow it and have to go through this whole process again. Tip number 4 is negotiate. Now, when you were going to your showings and open houses, you noticed any minor things that needed done. Cracked walls, paint, maybe it needs a new kitchen, a new bathroom. That's your bargaining power to get a lower price on the house when you write your offer. Now, you're going to want to get a home inspection, but remember, home inspections don't cover everything. So a radon test, a mold test, a pest and termite test, lead-based paint, that's all separate. That's normally not included in a home inspection. So make sure you remember that when you go to get your inspections done. Tip number 15. Now, it may be easier said than done, but don't stress and enjoy the process. Your realtor is there to make this as stress-free as possible. Answer any questions. In the moment, it might be stressful. You might start getting upset. You're going to go through every emotion possible. But when it's over, you'll be extremely happy. So stay stress-free and enjoy the process. So that wraps up our 15 tips on your first-time home buying experience. Again, if you have any questions at all, my contact info is in the description box below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you on the next one.